Thanks for that. Let's head over to New York. Will's in studio.
Morning.
Looking a bit bleary-eyed. What's your name, Will?
It's Will O'Callaghan, I think, still.
Yeah. Darren is broadcasting live from New York City. Ah, Darren, nice hotel.
That's 5-star.
Good morning. Good evening.
How are you?
It's good morning here too. A bit like Will, a bit bleary-eyed, but still on the high of life. That was my first experience at WrestleMania, off the childhood bucket list.
So tell us a little bit about what happened. You, it's in MetLife Stadium, which is the Giants and Jets Stadium out in Jersey. Is that right?
Yeah, and Jersey seems like a million miles away. It took about 2.5 hours to get home, 2 trains and a taxi. Bit of an ordeal after a 7-hour show. It was a rough trip back, but it was a really, really exciting day. Really cool. Probably lived up to the hype. It's pomp, it's pageantry. I found myself at one stage, instead of watching the pre-show, engaged in a Twitter argument with someone about whether or not wrestling was a sport. Spoiler alert, it's not a sport. No one over the age of 12 thinks it's a sport. You are not telling a wrestling fan anything new when you say it's not real, it's predetermined. So I gave up on that and decided to just enjoy the show. And it was a really, really enjoyable show for a load of reasons. Chief among them being that Becky Lynch walked out the big winner.
Yeah, so this is WrestleMania 35. She's the second ever non-Yank to main event. Is that right?
Correct. Everyone has been American or Canadian for the previous main events. Her, Becky Lynch, and Andre the Giant, the only two not from North America and the USA and Canada to actually make the main event. So it's a pretty sizable achievement. And the fact that she actually made it to the main event is incredible when you think that the way women were treated and regarded in wrestling was as sideshow and as titillation for juvenile adults for the best part of 2 decades. They were not taken seriously. They were not there to have matches. They were there to keep teenagers involved, interested and aroused in the product. So to actually be part of a sea change where she's helped this generation of female wrestlers, have helped herald an age where they're not only seen as equals to men, but they're seen as bigger draws. Like they were the table toppers. They were the big names on the card. They were the match everyone wanted to see. And with some really big global superstars in that world, it's a massive achievement.
So she beats Ronda Rousey. Explain what happens in WrestleMania main event. So how many times is she in the ring? How long is she out there for? Who's she up against? What does that work? How does that work?
Yeah, it was a triple threat match. It was Ronda Rousey, who obviously came in last year to huge fanfare. She's crossed over from UFC. Really, really adapted well to it. A lot of people thought she would be a kind of person who would appear maybe 7 or 8 times a year. She hasn't gone full time. She's not on the road 250 days a year, but she is competing pretty regularly and has taken to it really well. So it was Becky versus Charlotte Flair, who's the daughter of the 16-time champion Ric Flair, and Ronda Rousey. And it was basically 2 belts on the line that have 2 competing brands, a Raw brand which broadcast live on Monday night and a SmackDown brand which has just signed a $4 billion deal with Fox to broadcast their product. So the 2 women's titles were on the line. It was winner takes all. It was Becky, Ronda and Charlotte. No disqualification. They went at it. It was a stiff enough match. It's kind of been building in a way where Ronda's gone off script and broken the 4th wall by saying, I'm not going to play by your fake rules anymore in your fake sport. I'm a real fighter and I'm going to beat the holy hell out of all of you. So there's that lovely line that's blurred sometimes where you're not quite sure if she is going to hurt the person she's in the ring with. And it was a pretty stiff match. It was a decent match. A lot of people pretty happy with the way it turned out. It was a solid enough affair. The only thing was the end seemed a little bit screwy in the fact that it kind of came out of nowhere. Usually, like the whole point of wrestling is to tell a story. You get a story done in 15-20 minutes, so a beginning, a middle and an end, and fans should be able to see the end coming. That's the idea, that they will take you on a journey up and down with your emotions and eventually give you a payoff of a winner or a loser. But the end kind of came a bit abrupt and caught people off guard. But for the most part, the fans were hugely invested in what was happening. 82,000 people there in the MetLife, a new attendance record for a WWE event at that stadium.
Well, you were watching on TV?
I was, yeah. I agree with Darren at the end. I mean, obviously, Becky Lynch, this has been kind of a 6-7 month build that she was going to go win both titles. There was no doubt about what the result was going to be last night. But then the way they finished it was that they kept Ronda Rousey looking reasonably strong at the end. I'm guessing this is not the end of her time with WWE. She goes, it looks like she's going to get the win. She uses her finishing maneuver. It's reversed by Becky Lynch into a bit of a surprise win. It's the kind of thing you expect the bad guy or the bad woman going into the match to do at the end, as opposed to wanting to put over your biggest star in the company. But as Darren says, it's been quite remarkable that Becky Lynch, originally from Limerick but grew up in Dublin, has become the top merchandise seller for WWE, effectively, which many people might remember Stone Cold Steve Austin's character, where effectively I'm the man, I'll run over everybody in the company and no one's going to hold me back. This is the character that she's had going into this, and she's become the biggest name in wrestling right now. And the man who trained her as well, Finn Balor, he went and won the Intercontinental title last night as well. So we had 2 Irish successes on the one card. Yeah,
you were interviewing Sheamus on our social channels last night as well. He was in a tag team, I think.
Yeah, he was unsuccessful in it, but it's a long card. That's probably the hardest part about it, is you can get quite tired, and the main event probably suffered from that bit of fatigue. It was midnight before the entrances were finished and they got on, so the fans were probably a bit too tired for it, because they had, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 matches across the pre-show, so it was a long old build. By the time the Sheamus match came, you're kind of mid-card. Thought maybe he could have got a 6th title reign as tag team, which would put them 2 within the record held by the Dudley Boys. It's a really positive time, I suppose, overall, when you look at have 3 Irish people on the biggest event in professional wrestling is staggering. And the fact that Finn Balor was able to leave with the Intercontinental title, which would be seen as the secondary title to the main belt, it would generally be a way of priming people for the big time. It's like a workhorse title. It's a way of rewarding your mid-carders. People like Stone Cold Steve Austin have held it, Bret Hart, his brother Owen Hart, The Rock, everyone has held that belt. So he got it. He got a big win in WrestleMania. He went on second last. He was incredibly high up the card. I mean, he went on after Brock Lesnar. He went on after John Cena. He was really, really close to that main event, which was headlined by Becky and won by Becky. And I think her story before this is more interesting than where she is now, because she's someone that retired in 2007 on doctor's advice. She had the doctor feared she had brain damage. She damaged her 8th cranial nerve after a really bad concussion, and basically said, don't do this. She was an air hostess for a while. She was a stunt woman on the Vikings movie, and then did some wrestling stuff to prepare for stunts. So she would do the wrestling cardio and training to prepare for the physical stuff of the stunts. And then that came a conversation of, why don't you go back? You're cleared by your doctors to go back and try this again. And she was very hesitant to do it. But when she did about 5 years ago, it started on a path which ended with her now being anointed as the face of $1 billion company, which, okay, someone has decided, it's predetermined. She didn't actually win a title. She was given a title, but she was also given the responsibility of being a face of that company.
Well, so, that's the question I think a lot of people are asking. What does this mean for her on a personal, financial level? Is there prize money? Is there just a better contract? Does she get a share of any of the merchandise that they're selling, or is she still the same employee and the same salary and wages that she was before this all happened?
No, it would definitely be a game changer. There would be pay-per-view bonuses and structures, and 1 or 2 wrestlers have actually left over the years because the bonus and pay-per-view structure wasn't what it should have been. The WWE invented their own network, which kind of restructured how they awarded the pay-per-view bonuses, because not all of the shows were then had the same pay-per-view buy rates if people could sign up for $12 a month or €13 a month to do it. So she will become a big star of this. She's breakout. She's on every poster I've seen in the city of New York. She is going to be massive. Obviously, being at the top of the card, drawing money, you get cut of the merch sales. The fact that she's the biggest merch seller in the company at the moment means that obviously she gets a cut of that. I'm not sure what the actual percentage is. It might be around 1 or 2, but still pretty sizable if she shifts 1 million t-shirts. And she will definitely benefit from being up near the top of the card, which she is going to be for the next few months, you would imagine. The way in which she defeated Ronda made Ronda look really strong. It wasn't a clean win. It wasn't middle of the ring, 3 count. Ronda was beaten fair and square. It was quite messy as a finish, where it looked like Ronda just kicked out. So everyone comes out of it looking pretty well. Becky is obviously the feel-good story. It made sense to give her this run because the fans are desperate to see her do well. But the fact that Ronda now is probably going to go into a pretty lucrative feud with Becky over the next few months, that we'll see both of them near the top of the card, I would imagine.
An expectation you would imagine as well. 20 years ago, wrestling was at a much better place in terms of popularity, but money-wise, WWE have never had more money than they have. Ironically enough, they've signed a big deal with the Saudis to go over multiple times a year, which is going to net them a lot of money. And interestingly, they didn't let their women wrestle on the last time that they went to Saudi Arabia. So the next time they go, given that Becky Lynch is the person that they're pushing, it's going to be interesting to see whether women are allowed to perform there. And the Fox deal, as Darren mentioned, $4 billion. You would imagine if you're Becky Lynch and you're going into the next contract contract renegotiation. She's definitely going to be on SmackDown for Fox. You would think that she's asking for a lot of coin to stay around.
Yeah, okay. Anything else that you took away? It's a different, I presume, very different experience from being in the. You get to fall asleep for a little bit. So
I was at WrestleMania 18 back in 2002, and it was a much shorter card than what we saw last night. I think it was about 3.5 to 4 hours, which is a lot more palatable even when you are in bed than when you're trying to watch 7 hours on your phone to try and catch up with things. And realistically, I think the main event did suffer a lot because people were just remarkably tired at that point. There's only so much energy a live crowd can actually give, and when you've been sitting down in your chair for that long, you've probably had a few beers, naturally the energy drops a little bit. Thought the main event was pretty okay. I mean, I'm kind of with Darren on the finish of it. Outside of that, it was a very mixed bag. There was a lot of kind of results that won't have pleased the fans along the way. Kurt Angle, who was a big star of the show, ended up going out against Baron Corbin. Triple H retired Batista on the card as well. Not kind of the expectation or the happy moments, but the big titles all went to faces, the kind of people that are meant to be cheered by the crowd, with Seth Rollins winning the Raw title, Finn Balor winning the Intercontinental, and Kofi Kingston winning the SmackDown. So I think on reflection, probably a happy enough night for those who attended. And for WWE, when you talk about the money as well, they made $13.6 million on the gate last night in ticket sales alone, based on the 83,000. So while wrestling mightn't be the most popular, it's in an extremely healthy place financially.
Yeah. Is the atmosphere amazing, Darren? Like you said, it was a bucket list thing. Obviously, you've been a fan. You wanted to go. You got the opportunity to go. In terms of it being a proper bucket list item, did it live up to your expectations?
It lived up to mine, but I wouldn't recommend a non-fan went to WrestleMania because it is an ordeal. Like even if you're invested and want to see it, it goes on for an obnoxious amount of time, and you're just literally exhausted by the end of it. There are better ways to sample it and see if you would like it. I mean, I get that not everyone's going to like it, and they're perfectly entitled not to like it. I would always compare it with like Game of Thrones. People always say, wrestling's not real. Yeah, but Game of Thrones isn't either, and I like that. I don't believe there's dragons or frost walkers. So I think people have
monsters, Darren.
Frosty monsters. Sorry, Will. That's your phrase. People get this perverse pleasure in telling people that wrestling isn't real, and I can never really understand it. I never understand why someone thinks that they're the first person to tell an adult that what you are watching is not real. It's still real to me, damn it. It was on the bucket list. And it was really, really enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it starts with Hulk Hogan, who is just not a wrestling icon, but a genuine cultural icon. Like, everyone in the world knows who Hulk Hogan is. And at that stage, it just can't really go downhill. It was a lot of fun. Probably a little bit too long, but I would definitely go again.
Darren, good stuff. Thanks a million. Safe home. Enjoy the rest of your time in New York.
Cheers, guys.
It's our man in New York at WrestleMania, talking to us about his bucket list item being cleared.